Hey guys, what's up? It is week 264, the 7th year anniversary. I really should have a contest for you guys. Been really busy, lots of stuff on my plate. I will get one eventually for the year 7, but it's not going to be actually on the anniversary. Sorry about that, guys. I appreciate everybody sticking around with me for 7 years. I'm hoping to make it to at least 10. And then after 10, who knows what the hell I'll think. That'll be 520 episodes without missing one. Maybe I'll have to miss one here and there. I'll have a room tour soon. I did rearrange my room. I brought in a third movie store shelf. It takes up a lot more room, but it's less clutter, a lot more room for expansion now. I definitely will not be running out of room anytime soon. But I was getting close there before that. So let's hop into the reviews. The first up is from 2002. This is an Arrow 4K by Joe Carnahan, and this is Narc. This stars Ray Liotta and Jason Patric, and it's so funny watching this. I remember when this came out, and it feels like it came out 10 years ago. And I was like, when did this come out? 2010 or something? It was like 2002. I was like, oh crap. This is one that I missed when it came out. I know it had a good reputation. A lot of people said it was really strong, and so this is a crime film. Very gritty, very hard-nosed, very intense. It opens up in the very beginning with Jason Patric. He's an undercover cop, and he's kind of having this flashback. It kind of looks like he's reliving this moment, or it comes to that point where you realize he is. And he's chasing this drug addict who's running through the streets, and some really messed up, intense stuff happens. The way it's shot, everything is just, throws you right in there. It's got a certain look about the movie. The movie is ultra gritty, ultra blue. And normally I'm like, but it just fits with this. It's cold. It's the city. It's a lot of, drug addicts and drugs and undercover and all this kind of stuff here. So Jason Patric does something that puts somebody's life at risk, and somebody actually dies, so he loses his job. They call him back in. His commanding officer, his chief, is basically, is it Chili? I can't remember the guy's name. I want to say it's McBride, the actor. He's in a bunch of stuff. He's like, let's go to prison. He was in Boston Legal, I think, the TV show. Good actor. So he wants him to come in and basically look at some photos, and they're trying to convince him to come back to the undercover squad. If he helps bring in some guys who are responsible for killing an undercover cop, they'll give him a job, a desk job. He's paired up with Ray Liotta, who was on the case originally and kicked off the case. He's a super intense, angry guy. Great performance from Ray Liotta. Incredibly intense. This is not your, Goodfellas performance or Cocaine Bear or No Escape or anything like that. This is a different Ray Liotta. I've seen him angry and I've seen him intense, but this one he's just got a whole new layer of anger to him. He's older. He's more grizzled. He just looks perfect for the part. He's really strong performance in here. So these two start to investigate, and what I love about this movie is, as it goes on, there's obviously a mystery that's going to unfold. People aren't who they say they are. More things unfold about the past, being undercover, how rough it is, how it affects the cops' families. All this kind of stuff is in here, the drama. But it's a small contained story. It's not a huge cast. It's just done really well acted. It unfolds well. And I was watching this. I was like, there's like 40 minutes left. And there was 15 minutes left of this movie. It's a 105-minute long movie. So it's not a short movie, but I was thinking I got a lot left. Maybe I won't be able to fit. And I was like, there's only 15 minutes. I was like, this is very intense. But it's also downbeat as hell. It's also gut-wrenching. It just gives you that feeling of cold where you don't want to be there. I can't think of, there's the rapper in here. Jeez, who's in a bunch of stuff. Is it Busta Rhymes? I think it is. He's pretty good in it, actually. I think everybody is really strong in the film. And when the violence is there, it's there. It's gritty. It's in your face. It's brutal. The ending is, like I said, it's gut-wrenching. Jason Patric's really good, and he's in a bunch of movies, but he's always in a lot of stuff that I never really saw. Of course, The Lost Boys is the first time I saw him, being the son of, Jason Miller. And I always thought he was good. It's just that Rush was another one where he plays an undercover cop, similar to this one, right? And it's just, I didn't see Jason Patric, as much as I should have. I just was like, man, where did he go? I missed him. And seeing him in this, I was like, he's really good. And I looked, I was like, he's been acting. It's just, I've been not paying attention as much as I should have been. He's good in this. And so is Ray Liotta. It's a great story. It's a good mystery. It's not the biggest thing in the world, which I like. I like crime films. And that's like the only genre for me that's went through the decades since the 70s that's never really sucked. There's times where certain genres dip, disappear, suck, get worse. And crime films have always stayed pretty solid. You know, they've always sounded really good to great, and it never really dipped in terms of all, you know, the quality being bad. There's still good crime movies being made every year. But as far as the special features are concerned, we have Dolby Atmos and Dolby Vision, I believe, and the Atmos sounds great. Good sound mix on here. We have two discs here. The disc 2 is all extras, so that's great. It's the 4K is pretty much on itself with a commentary and introduction. That's what's on the disc. So then we have Shattering the Blue Line, newly filmed interview with writer-director Joe Carnahan. He talks about how Tom Cruise, the actor, basically got this movie known and exposed. He put some money forward and everything like that. Shooting Narc, a new video essay on the look of Narc, featuring an interview with director of photography Alex Neponashi, and he talks about working with the director and getting certain looks. Talks about, I think he even brings up one of the camera operators in here. If You Live Another Day, newly filmed interview with actress Krista Briggs. Basically mentions having to work with a crying baby. Is pretty intense, good story. The journey of a costume, a newly filmed interview with costume designer Gersha Phillips. That's interesting because you really don't get to see too many costume designers talk about this. She talks about rewatching Goodfellas and like basically getting to know Ray Liotta, working with Jason Patrick, getting him the wrong pant, all this kind of stuff like that. And then we have Making a Deal, vintage promotional featurette looking at the making of the film, visual trip, vintage promotional featurette looking at the visual style of the film, the Friedkin connection, of vintage promotional featurette interviewing William Friedkin, discussing the connection between his body of work and Narc, shooting up a vintage promotional featurette looking at the making of the film, vintage EPK interviews with Joe Carnahan, Ray Liotta, Jason Patrick, Diane Napperfold, the cinematographer, and William Friedkin, theatrical trailer, image gallery. There we go. 2002, Dolby Audio, Dolby Atmos, looks great, sounds great. This one, I was really surprised by it. I'd heard good things, but like I said, I just never really disappointed with crime films, crooked cops, undercover cops, all that kind of stuff. I'm into it. Good stuff. And it's like one of those deals where it's a story told 3 different times. You see it multiple times, and you're like, what's the truth? And then you eventually get the truth at the very end, which is good. A good reveal, and that it builds up to it. Good film. Another one from Arrow Films here. We have Night Falls on Manhattan. This is a Sidney Lumet film. Of course, 12 Angry Men, classic film. And this is another kind of crime film about police corruption, which is something that Sidney Lumet is obviously interested in with Serpico and some other films as well. So this is a movie that I really had not heard of. But Sidney Lumet, that you know from him, you know you're getting some great actors giving some great fucking performances. And from all different sides of the law here. Andy Garcia stars in this, and I like Andy Garcia. You know, Andy Garcia, like a lot of people say, he's never really been one of my guys, but I've always seen Andy Garcia. I was like, oh yeah, he's good. And I always love Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead. I know a lot of people don't love that movie, but I've had an affinity for it for years. But Andy Garcia, always a solid actor. Always liked him. Great in this. Also has Ian Holm. Exceptional in this film. James Gandolfini, a slew of other actors who are really strong in here. A lot of small character actors just giving really good performances. I can't think of the love interest's name. Is basically he's on the other side of the law for him. Not in a criminal sense, but you know she is a defense attorney and he's a prosecutor. Or is it? Yeah. So it's all that kind of deal here. So Andy Garcia, in the very beginning of this movie, you have Ian Holm, who's excellent in this movie. Playing he's a British actor playing like a tough city cop. So you're like New York City cop. So you're like, you know, that's a little odd, but he does a really good job. And he's partners with James Gandolfini. And in the very beginning of the film, they go to arrest this big time drug dealer. Biggest one in the city. And what happens is there's some strange things that happen. Some people get shot, some people get injured, a bunch of cops show up, there's some fatalities, and our criminal slips away into the night. He gets himself a great defense attorney in Richard Dreyfuss, of course, also an exceptional actor, really strong in this. And what happens is Andy Garcia's father is one of the cops who's injured really badly, and what happens is the prosecutor's office wants to give Andy Garcia this shot. Because he's coming up and he's very low, but they think this is an open close case. He can win. We can make this hero cop. He's an ex-cop. His dad's in the hospital. This guy has everything, and we can basically make our whole case on this. He does it to kind of screw over this guy, and also he guarantees it's a shoe-in. So Andy Garcia gets this huge case, and what happens is it kind of makes a name for himself. It puts him up on an elevated level, and he's somewhere else. But you think the movie's going to lead to the trial, and that's all we're going to be here, and everything like that. But that's not necessarily where we go. We go past that. We go into all the little intricate details of grayness. Everybody's gray in this movie. Even the best people in here are gray. You know, the prosecutor, the defense attorney, the the judge, the cops, everybody in here. It's just all levels of this grayness. And there's something that his kind of mentor tells him, and it kind of sticks with you. And he's just like, you know, you don't, sometimes you have to bend the rules. You don't have to be, you think everybody's perfect. You can't be perfect. And, you know, he's like, you just have to be better than most. Or better than most, and you kind of hits this idea here. And hearing Sidney Lumet talk, he believes in justice, he believes in the law system back then at this time. So it's a really interesting movie, really exceptional. James Gandolfini is a smaller role, but there's this great moment where Garcia goes off on him, and he's like, "You calling him a rat fuck?" And you're just like, "Oh wow, like it's perfect." And Gandolfini just takes it, and the writing's great, realistic. There's a time when somebody's told, it's Ian Holmes told that somebody has died, and his reaction to it is so natural and realistic. I've seen that reaction in real life, and I've done that reaction in real life, and I'm just watching him do it. I was just like, wow, now that's acting. And I like that Sidney Lumet gives these actors time. He gives them time to react to the dialogue. Nobody's cutting your dialogue off. Nobody's cutting them short. He gives the fucking actors air. And these are all masters of their craft, working at a high level. The music will get stuck in your head. There's a nice little, kind of bookends in the beginning when Garcia is basically told this is what you're going to be when you're his attorney at first, and this low-level attorney gets this big speech, and then after that, he's the guy giving the speech at the end. And it's just really good film. Would highly recommend it. Recommended for, movie that maybe passed you by. Night Falls on Man. It passed me by. I've seen a handful of his films, but I know of him, and I've never even heard of this movie, to be honest. I mean, maybe in passing on cover, but that's it. There's so many good movies that just really didn't get the recognition they should have at the time of their release. So we have brand new 2K Master, original negative, Arrow Films, high definition, of course, original lossless 5.1 surround and 2-point stereo. Then we have subtitles, archival commentary with director Sidney Lumet, archival commentary by actors Andy Garcia and Ron Lubman, with producers Josh Kramer and Tom Mount. The directors, Sidney Lumet, an hour-long archive documentary from 2002 featuring interviews with Lumet, Garcia, Lubbock, Jack Lemmon, Rudd Steiger, Christopher Walken, and others. And that's great because it goes over his entire career and refreshes you on movies that maybe you forgot about. On-set interviews with Lumet, Garcia, Dreyfuss, Olin, Holm, and Lyman. Behind-the-scenes footage, theatrical trailer, TV spots, limited edition packaging featuring original newly commissioned artwork by Tom Ralston, illustrated collector's booklet featuring new writing on the film by Nick Clement, and original production notes. Great release from Arrow Films. It is region locked. The opening scene's pretty intense too, and the drug dealer, really good performance, really intense performance, unique performance. I liked this movie quite a bit. Thought it was great. Now, this one here was made a few years ago, but it's getting its wide released, I think, in the States now, at least the Blu-ray. And this is The Wolf House. Now, I can't remember exactly what country this is from. It's a really bizarre. I think Chile is where it's from. And the opening kind of explains the plot and all these kind of things as if it's like this lost film or this film that's supposed to be put out there like historical piece of film, but it's actually... And this is a weird film. Now, I'm going to say this. The story is kind of unique, kind of crazy, kind of weird, kind of surreal and trippy. And I don't have too much to say about the story, and I don't think that many people get caught up on the story of Wolf House. I think what people get caught up about is the technical aspects of it, because it is a stop motion film, but it's real size stop motion. You know what I mean? Instead of being miniatures or anything like that, or the wrong size, the entire film is stop motion, and it's basically like they took this house that's kind of run down and beat the ever-living shit out of it and decided to make whatever they could out of this house. It's really unique in that aspect. It looks really different, and there's some haunting imagery for sure. Like, it crosses into that threshold of being a horror film because of what it is, and it's kind of almost like the Three Pigs kind of story in a certain way. It's Wolf House, right? They're waiting for this wolf to come in. This woman has these two pigs that she is trying to adopt and save, and they're afraid at first, and at one point they turn into these pig children and then children, and she's raising them, and it's got to be a lot of allegories and weird things like that at the same time of being a fear of being a parent, all sorts of things like that. But there's some really disturbing imagery where things catch on fire, the house completely morphs, people's faces will be on the wall and they'll come off the wall and be like characters, like 2D, then like flat, and then 2D off the wall. It's just a lot of unnerving, but also creative stuff. Overall, I thought it was really interesting or really cool to watch. It doesn't hold my interest that long though. it holds it for the runtime, but it's not something that I can continuously see myself revisiting all the time. It's kind of a couple time watch, maybe in a unique experience, but I do think it's worth watching. I do think it's completely triumphant in stop motion in this weird way. It is ugly in some ways, in a weird beautiful kind of way, you know what I mean, like Mad God, not quite as extreme as Mad God. Mad God was legitimately a fucking nightmare. Like Mad God gave me nightmares. I was like not, but I was just like, I can't take Mad God too much. I can't take too much of Mad God, if that makes any sense to anybody. But Wolf House is a little easier to digest, but it's just as kind of creative and unique as that film as well. But I would recommend it. As far as the features are concerned, we have some shorts on here. Weather Vane, Dura Climb Rum, The Smaller Room, and The Witch and the Lover. So yeah, if you like stop motion, all these are stop motions. It's a relatively short film in Spanish and German with optional Spanish and English subtitles. Yeah, check it out. It's interesting. All right, we're going to hop on those 1982 movies.
I know I'm human. And if you were all these things, then you just attack me right now. So some of you are still human. This thing doesn't want to show itself. It wants to hide inside an imitation. It'll fight if it has to. But it's vulnerable out in the open. If it takes us over, then it has no more enemies. Nobody left to kill it. And then it's won.
You son of a bitch, you moved the cemetery, but you left the bodies, didn't you? You son of a bitch, you left the bodies and you only moved the headstones! You only moved the headstones! Why?
For a girl like you to come into my life, I've been waiting for a girl like you, the love that will survive. I've been waiting for someone new to make me feel alive. Yeah, waiting for a girl like you to come into my life.
You bitch! You called me a bitch!
What's in the basket?
Open season!
How do we know she is alive?
Say, please stop it. There's no more time. You've got to. Please stop it. Stop it now. Turn it off. Turn it off. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
All right, the first one up is a Shaw Brothers film, and this is Hell Has No Boundary. Now, bear with me. I'm covering 5 1982 movies, and 4 of them are Hong Kong. One's a Hong Kong-Taiwan kind of co-production. So this is going to be a lot of similarities between these films, but Hell Has No Boundary. So this one is pretty crazy. All these films have a lot of DNA. Some are comedy, some are not. This is one of the non-comedy films, Hell Has No Boundary, and this is a really strong Shaw Brothers flick. Shaw Brothers releases a lot of good horror films in the early 80s and before that as well. So this film essentially follows this couple that seems really happy. They end up going camping on this island. The woman sees this kind of gem, or like this sparkle. She goes to the sparkle, finds this weird crystal, and the crystal kind of possesses her. And right away, there's some young kids playing around there, and she attacks one of the young kids, tries to drown him immediately, even though the boyfriend said you can help yourself to some snacks to the kid. And this lady completely goes ballistic and tries to drown the kid. When they get back, she's not the same. She's overly aggressive towards everyone. She works in this kind of business, she's kind of like a cop, if like a police officer, and she's working on a promotion. And what happens is there's a criminal holding his family hostage, or holding somebody hostage, and she shoots him in a really miraculous way, and a reporter captures it. It doesn't make any sense, though, how she shot him through the door. After this, there's people that are constantly like, her commanding officer's like, I don't want you for a promotion, but she starts to manipulate things. This demon within inside her starts to kill people that get in her way, including some nasty coworkers and a crazy elevator scene. It's not the only elevator scene from 1982. Of course, Manhattan Baby has one too, by Lucio Fulci. If I remember correctly, it's been a while since I watched that one. I will revisit, of course. So she starts to pick off these people that are upsetting her, and of course, the boyfriend knows something is up, and we're like, he's going to try to stop her, get an exorcism, all this kind of typical Hong Kong, Asian kind of cult and curse and possess stuff. But what happens after that is not your typical thing. We have a flashback, and we understand that there's some sort of crazy reincarnation storyline going on back to the dates of World War II, when Japan, invaded China, and essentially this possessed ghost is, her ancestor beforehand, whatever reincarnation, and her boyfriend currently is her brother. So she has to start picking off all the people that did her wrong and whatnot. So she starts killing them all in really violent ways. It's really fucking weird. It's really grim. There is some really nasty stuff in here that crosses the line, I would say. Not like anything that you guys haven't seen if you've seen Hong Kong stuff, or like Lost Souls or something. There's a little bit of Lost Souls action, I guess you'll say, and if you guys know what that means. It's rapey. It gets a little rapey at one point. But the end of the film is really dark. It's really depressing, and I like this. I think this is a good one. I think this is one of the stronger Hong Kong movies I saw from this year. Hell Has No Boundary. Is it my favorite from this batch of Hong Kong films? I would say yes. Hell Has No Boundary. I would recommend it. I'd like to see a Blu-ray of it. I think I would recommend this one. Some cool kills, some cool ideas, and just completely bonkers and batshit. I mean, just as good as Curse of Evil. Probably a better put together film than Curse of Evil, but Curse of Evil is just, from this year, is just so too crazy not to love. So maybe Curse of Evil a little bit better than Hell Has No Boundary in terms of entertainment, but not actually a better movie. I don't know. It's hard to say. This one's good though. Check it out. Okay, next up is Hex After Hex, directed by the original director of Hex, I believe, and the sequel. I don't remember what the sequel is. It's a really goofy movie. Both of those are from 1980. This is the weirdest trilogy of all time. The first Hex movie from 80 is a pretty serious spell movie. Decent. A lot of good iconic imagery that people will remember. And then the sequel is completely silly and goofy about a gambler and whatnot. And this one is also completely ridiculous. Hex After Hex. So this one follows a story of a guy who's down on his luck. He doesn't have much money. He works as a stuntman at Shaw Brothers, right? It's funny because this one is definitely the most fourth wall breaking, where we kind of like had these ideas. At one point somebody gets branded by something and it's a Shaw Brothers symbol, and we actually hear the opening in the Shaw Brothers opening. You're like, this is so fucking weird. So like at this point they're just kind of getting really weird and bizarre with it, breaking the fourth wall. But essentially what happens is one day this old man comes up to him and says, listen, I will pay you a shitload of money. I'll let you have a house, all this kind of stuff. All you have to do is marry my daughter. And he's like, what daughter? He's like, my daughter is a ghost. She loves muscle men. This guy's constantly working out. So you got to marry my daughter. And he's like, no, get out of here. So what happens is this ghost won't take no for an answer. Kind of possesses, I think, somebody that's in the location. This other guy kills some people. Kills this one asshole guy, if I'm not mistaken. And kind of infiltrates this guy. Starts a relationship with him. So that's what happens, and weird kind of stuff happens. A big chunk of this movie, to be brutally honest, is him at his job working for this miserable asshole boss that causes the death of somebody. He's just over the top piece of shit. So our ghost infiltrates him, starts to seduce him, and then is going to wreck this motherfucker. And it's a complicated story about him losing his... It's so silly. It's so ridiculous. By the end of the movie, all things work out. There is this weird kind of spell, of course, trying to take the ghost out because people are after him. But we have the showdown, right? You got to have the big Shaw Brothers, like, spiritual, crazy showdown in any of the Hong Kong or Asian films. It was also in the last film, Hell Has No Boundary. Of course, you got to have it. It just goes without saying that there's going to be some big, magical, giant fight spell shit at the end of your Hong Kong horror film from the 80s. It's going to be there. It's in all of them. So what happens here, and what happens is somebody brings this, like, life statue together, and they're moving, and the statue is moving, and it's really cool. It's really unique. It pays off with money, and the weirdest, goofiest, silliest way, and it ends in a death, but it's like, it's funny because the guy's an asshole. It is such a weird movie. I like it better than the second one. I don't think it's better than the first Hex, even though the first Hex I need to revisit because I wasn't like the biggest fan of it. I think I gave it the short end of the stick. I think it deserves more respect than that because it's by a great director. He did so many good films, and this is another one that I find decent. I think that his second Hex movie is the worst. So this one I laughed. There's a lot of weird jokes about people being naked and male butts and asses, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of that in Hex After Hex, but for the most part I enjoyed my time with it. It's all right. It's not great. It's not the best Shaw Brothers movies. It's a silly comedy ghost movie, which is a huge chunk of the Asian cinema. If you see horror films from Asia, a lot of them have a lot of comedy elements, especially when you get more towards the mid 80s. You get to Mr. Vampire and stuff like that, but they're all the way in the very beginning too. Inspired by Abbott Costello, probably, Bob Hope movies and stuff like that. It's all kind of zany, goofy, silly stuff, and a lot of these Hong Kong flicks. Okay, the next one is To Hell with the Devil, and this is probably the least horror film of the bunch. The ending does have a great horror set piece, and this is surprisingly directed by John Woo. That's right, John Woo, who did Hard Boiled and The Killer. So he's doing a horror film in 1982. How fucking cool is that? That's what I'm saying. Going through all these years, you see like all these people coming through and going through. You're like, when you start watching stuff in the 80s, you're like, well, you see early Fred Olen Ray in 80, and you see the directorial debut of William Lustig, the horror one, and then like you're hitting these other guys. And you're like, John Woo had a horror film in 82. How crazy is that? John fucking Woo. So yeah, this is a really silly movie. In the very beginning, we have this alcoholic preacher who they kick him out of there, like, we're banning you from the church, you're no longer the preacher, you're a fucking loser, you're a drunk, and he doesn't like it. He ends up trying to kill himself in the bathroom, something goes wrong, or he drinks himself, he goes up to heaven, and while he's going up to heaven, there's an elevator to hell, and this is a character actor who's this devil kind of guy, and they're going up and down, so, like, we see them both, and they basically heaven says, you gotta, like, 30 more years, brother, you gotta go back down there and basically help souls, and not let people be corrupted by Satan and the devil. The other guy we see of hell, and this reminds me of, I can't remember, is it the Heaven and Hell Shaw Brothers movie where we get glimpses of hell and all these things, or is it Shell and Hellgate? There's a couple of these Shaw Brothers movies from the early 80s that I watched where like they actually go to hell and they fight these 7 layers of hell, and they're really weird, and one of them actually shows heaven and hell. I'm mixing up which ones are which, but they're really weird and bizarre, and one of them's a little bit more serious than this, if I'm not mistaken. Both of them probably are a little serious, and probably a little better than this movie, to be honest. This is not horrible. But so what happens is we see a glimpse of hell, and the devil is completely comical and weird, and has the horns and the fangs. He looks like Nosferatu, but more of a devil Nosferatu. And so what happens is he's like, well, we need you to get souls, and if you don't get souls, you're going to get in trouble. So they basically go up there, and they kind of hyper-focus on this one guy. The devil's like, listen, he is a up-and-coming music writer. So it sort of reminded me of Phantom of Paradise, right? Where he's like this writer that's trying to get in there. He's hanging around this like music set. He likes this girl a lot. That's all he wants is this woman. And she's kind of interested in this like hotshot singer who's an asshole, who's an idiot, who doesn't write his own stuff. The producer steals this guy's song. So that's where the Phantom of Paradise kind of comparison comes into. And he starts to kind of be talked to by this devil guy. Not the actual Satan guy, but the demon guy. And he's like, listen, I can make your life great. All you got to do is yada, yada, yada. So he starts to kind of follow into this. this and get the riches and get the fame. And we see all these different little kind of scenarios play out where he's like, with him and his girlfriend, and he's rich and now he's poor and he's very possessive of her. And we have these comedy of error storylines going on for a very, very long time until we hit the very end where the priest comes in and he's like, listen, I've got to get you away from this. And we have this giant showdown that is the live action style of a video game. So he's like holding the guy, shooting him. Two of them, the guy is holding the guy and shooting lasers out of the guy, and a bunch of weird little devils. And a lot of them are like these statues. You can't really tell them. They explode. And it's fun. It's goofy. It's weird. It goes on for way too long, but it's the coolest stuff in the movie because it's, again, the big spell kind of curse showdown that you got to have in every Hong Kong movie. It's there. So to hell with the devil. This one is pretty fun. It's enjoyable. Do I see a lot of like, hey, that's the guy who's going to do Hard Boiled, I can tell? No, not really. But do I see this guy looks like he was hired to make a product that was popular at the time? Yeah, I do. And it's not a bad movie. I enjoy it. It's weird. It's different to a certain extent, but still in that same mold. It's still very similar. You know, it's different enough that like it's a little different, but it's the same. You know, in a lot of ways as well. You know, I think it's good for what it is. It's just this kind of silly movie. It can only be so good sometimes. Some of them, like to be a silly Hong Kong horror movie, and like sometimes it's hard to be great when you compare it to some of the other ones. You know, I don't dislike any of them. It's just going to be really hard to break over a 7 on these. Like, I think that Hell Has No Boundary is really good. That's more serious, though. But I do think some of the comedy ones can work really well. But this one's just all right. It's decent. To Hell with the Devil. Okay, the next one up is... this is a Fortune Star release here. This is still sealed. Till Death Do We Scare. I actually watched... I remember I love these Legendary Collection things here, and I actually didn't open this. I watched it online. I know, I'm so weird. I've had it sealed for 20 years, so I'm going to leave it sealed. But Till Death Do We Scare. So the biggest kind of calling to this one, this is another comedy, kind of Hong Kong horror film, not a Shaw, and I don't think it's a Golden Harvest, but who knows? It may be a Golden Harvest. So basically, the thing about this one is I think it's City Lights. Could be, not City Lights, that's the other company. Whatever it is, Pacific something. I'm getting confused. So... the big call to this one is that Tom Savini's listed as doing the special effects on it. Now you're thinking, oh, it's going to be a crazy gore fest. It's not that. They're kind of like goofy, zany effects, and I'm not sure what capacity he worked on this. He's listed on there, and it's always been the one from the 80s where you're like, what is this Till Death Do We Scare kind of thing? This is a marriage film, marriage kind of horror comedy thing. Like last week, of course, I had Honeymoon Horror, I had The Newlydeads, now I'm Till Death Do We Scare. You know, a lot of newlywed horror, and I had Blood Bride from 82 as well I covered, which technically is 1980, but it is what it is. So a lot of matrimony horror from 1982, or just I've been watching a lot of it. So what happens is we have this woman in the very beginning, she's getting married, or she just got married, and her husband dies in this freak accident, like this whole thing where he bites it. So after that, she quickly remarries this kind of like high-rolling kind of gangster style gambler guy, and he dies too. Both of them die in weird, tragic deaths. And while she's getting married, the preacher's kind of making eyes at her, this kind of skinny little guy who's kind of a pushover. And they kind of fall in love after that. And she ends up marrying him. Guess what? Thrice. 3 times he dies. So what happens is these 3 are ghosts now. And they're ridiculous. They love her still. But they kind of sit there and they think, well, we want her to be happy. But we don't want her to date a bum. But we don't want him to marry them because he could die. So they're basically trying to find her the perfect mate. So they find this guy who's seemingly very nice, and a lot of comedy of errors sets up where they're like, well, we got to hook these 2 up and, you know, get them to dance, get them to have sex, get them to fall in love. So it's these 3 ghosts behind the scenes kind of doing goofy, silly shit to scare them into each other's arms. It's funny. After a while, the 3 ghosts are revealed. They do some weird, zany kind of Beetlejuice effects where they stretch their face out, suck their face in. That's kind of where the effects, I think, come in. Were Savini. It has to be. So eventually these 3 ghosts become heroes to them. Not heroes, but they're no longer threats to them. And what happens is there is an evil guy on the side who's like, oh, I want to kill this guy so I can be reincarnated. There's a whole weird afterlife thing, which kind of reminds me of Beetlejuice at the same time. And our 2 kind of main characters here, besides, you know, the ghost and the love interest of the main guy, the 2 couples, there's Eric Zane, I can't think of his name. He's in stuff like Fatal Vacation. He's in a slew of these movies. He's always a comedic kind of heavy-set actors in all these. He's his best friend. So these 2 at the very end of the film end up being tricked into going to this island where there's this ghost kind of party with the Ghost King every year. They end up going to this ghost party, and they are found out that they're not ghosts, and the ghosts get really mad. There's all sorts of zany, weird hijinks that ensue, comedy. Overall, the movie's funny, it's silly, it's a little long, it wears out its welcome. It's not 100% a horror film, but I did enjoy my time with it. I did enjoy it, and there's a novelty. Hell, man, how many Hong Kong movies did Tom Savini work on? Not too many, right? I think that's super unique, super weird. Love to hear some backstory on Till Death Do We Scare. I like the film. I like Eric Tang. I can't say his name, but he's good in it. Everybody's pretty solid, and it's fun. It's just a little long. It gets a little repetitive, but I would recommend it. I enjoy this kind of stuff. Again, a kind of silly comedy here from Hong Kong. Till Death Do We Scare. Okay, the last one from 1982 is The Devil Returns. And this is a Taiwan, I think, Hong Kong co-production. This one is a serious one. So what we have here is this young woman is unfortunately attacked by this escaped convict. He rapes her, he assaults her. It's off screen. It's very unpleasant, and she obviously is suffering from this tremendously. She ends up being pregnant. The killer is put to death. He dies, and she ends up being terrified from everything. Her husband, still loves her, wants everything. He travels a lot, so she's left alone. She has a best friend there. Her best friend has a guy who's constantly following her around. She also has a maid around, and all this kind of stuff happening here. So. She keeps having like these weird kind of things happen and whatnot. She wants to get rid of this baby. She feels like the baby's not hers. She feels wrong about it. All this kind of stuff here, right? So when she tries to go get an abortion, some crazy shit happens. The nurse flips out for no reason, obviously possessed, attacks the doctor. Cool kill scene. Really cool kill scene. As it progresses, she has a baby, of course, and the baby seems to be off, spying on her. She seems to be going crazy too, where no one will believe it. We have a Rosemary's Baby kind of situation. Eventually, she takes the baby to get exercised. That's right, she exercises this fucking baby, and this pisses off the killer, and he comes back for revenge. And this is the last 20 minutes where the killer comes back for revenge. Some violent kills in that, very creepy stuff here. We have some good kills at that point. I think 3 or 4 kills at the end of the movie, and they're all pretty brutal. One of them is really nasty, involving somebody getting a bag over their head. I was like, oh, this is pretty crazy. Now, I like the film. I think it's pretty good. I think that what helps it is the music cues. And they're funny because they just lift right from Jay Chataway's score, from Maniac, from Shining, from The Exorcist, and a bunch of other ones. They just lift the music from those movies like fuck it, right? So, yeah, that at first I was like, what is this really sad, like kind of really creepy music? I was like, this is fucking Maniac. It took me a second to register, and then I was like, oh, it's The Exorcist. I was like, those cues are from The Shining. And so it's lifting all these music. It's very common in Hong Kong films and Taiwan films that they'll just lift scores from other films or cues or anything like that. And sometimes if you are familiar with like the public domain song, the library music from Dawn of the Dead, that'll pop up in a lot of Shaw Brothers movies made before Dawn of the Dead because it's that library music, the DeWolf stuff. So like a lot of times in these Asian movies, in Taiwan and Hong Kong, you'll hear music, or Indonesia, you're like, hey, that's from something fucking else, or you can't register it. I remember one of them had Death Wish 2 stuff too, the Jimmy Page, all that shit coming in, and you're like, fuck, man, that's kind of bold, but it is what it is, and that kind of stuff here. Overall, this one is pretty decent. Devil Returns. The ending is really the payoff. The last 20 minutes, I think that's what people are going to look for. Besides that, I enjoyed it. It does feel kind of like a lot of other possession movies. It's a mixture of all sorts of things. There's a scene lifted right out of Halloween here with the closet. Overall, I recommend Devil Returns. It's not going to be for everybody. It's not some groundbreaking, unique film, but it's kind of Hong Kong's way to show the modern horror, what was going on there. And, I think people get a kick out of hearing the music, seeing the other scenes from movies. It's very similar to that. I like to see a remastered edition. I mean, we get way worse movies than this all the time, and Hong Kong's a gold mine for good movies that nobody's talking about. It is like, there's a lot of stuff getting put out now, but there's hundreds of movies that probably never will, from Taiwan, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Thailand. There's just lots of weird shit. Going through these 80s and stuff, I've been discovering lots of weird ones. A lot of times without subtitles. Sometimes I'll try to make AI subtitles. Other times I cannot because it just not work. But, I'm working on them, going through them, and seeing some gems, seeing some crummy crap. But, it's worth it. I enjoy doing it. And I'm going to do the entire 80s, and I'm going to keep doing it until I die. 70s, 80s, 60s, 90s. We'll see after that. Maybe the 50s. I'll probably do 50 to 2000, and then we'll do what we can. I've only got so much shelf life myself, but Devil Returns, interesting stuff. Okay, the Patreon pick this week was Righting Wrongs, and I believe this is the first Cynthia Rothrock Hong Kong movie. And this one is pretty pretty bonkers. The Agnes is a Vinegar Syndrome release. Tons of stuff in here. There's actually 2 versions of the movie, and the versions are hugely different. I want to remember this actor's name here. Corey Yuen directed it. He's done a handful of these movies as well. I gotta find the actor here, Yuen Bao, who I've seen in a bunch of stuff. I can't think of anything off the top of my head because I'm a piece of trash. But this one's pretty crazy. So what happens is we have this prosecutor that is working on this case, and he's prosecuting these 2 guys. Right in the very beginning, this badass assassin comes in, and you know how Hong Kong has those high-rise apartments with the locks and the gates. There's some cops guarding this family, and this guy comes in and he kills the entire family. All the cops kills everybody, so everybody's murdered. These are all witnesses in the trial, so these 2 guys don't have their star witness. This prosecutor's pissed off, so he decides to take the law into his own hands, and he starts picking these guys off. What happens is this kind of brings forth some other things, and we start seeing police corruption in here. Cynthia Rothrock is a CID agent, and she starts to look into the case as well. And at the very end, we realize that there is somebody who witnessed the murders, and the murderer who committed the crimes is, a cop. He is actually played by an actor who's in a lot of the Inspector Wears Skirts movies, and he's a good actor, good, handsome-looking guy, badass. Never seen him play a villain. I might have, but I didn't recall it after wearing the Inspector Wears Skirts movies. He's kind of like this kind of, suave, kind of cool guy or whatever, captain. This one, he plays the kind of villainous version of that. So as the movie goes on, there's lots of great fight scenes, there's lots of great bad guys, there's lots of crazy action and violence. And it progresses, it starts to get darker and darker. And I was like, oh shit, that character just died. And by the end of the movie, I was just like, I can't believe we just did that. It ended, and I cackled. Not for like, oh, that's so funny. I was just amused that the movie had these balls. And kind of shocked. And I love that. There's 2 endings, though. The other version, not so much the ballsy ending. I'll leave it at that. But I was watching this, and it made me just appreciate Hong Kong action movies or action movies from yesteryear, because there were stakes. I'm going to be honest, even the good action movies, like modern action movies, I'll watch and I'll like and I'll enjoy. I'm like, that was good, that was really fun. But I don't have an affinity for them like I do the old action movies, because there was no holes barred, especially the Hong Kong films. They just do shit you don't expect to do. They don't pull their punches. And movies nowadays, action movies in particular, they pull their fucking punches, man. They're crap. I hate saying this. Action movies are the worst they've ever been. Maybe some people will be like, oh, I like these action movies. Yeah, they're cool. They're fun. The John Wick movies are fun. I like them. I'll never revisit them ever again. One and done. I just feel no stakes. I don't know who any of these characters are, And these movies here, they'll break your heart. They'll build these characters up, and then they'll fucking kill them. And like I said, I don't want to badmouth those movies because I like those movies. It's just that there's something special about these old action movies, especially from Hong Kong, that just don't pull punches. I mean, there's lots of great fight scenes. Cynthia Rothrock actually has a fight scene with a female martial artist from the time. So, like, it kind of like on an escalator and all this kind of shit. She's really great in here. I really love seeing her. Yuen Bao is really great in here, too. But as far as the features are concerned, this is a 3-disc set. There's tons of shit on here. It looks great, sounds great. We have the 96-minute Hong Kong version with Cantonese, English, and Mandarin language tracks, and newly translated Cantonese to English subtitles. Brand new audio commentary with star Cynthia Rothrock, and archival commentary track with Rothrock. Also included on the disc are following special features: Fighting Wrongs, 25, brand new interview with Rothrock. Good stuff. She talks about her career, getting this role at first. Unscripted Justice, brand new interview with actress Karen Shepard. She's another martial artist, talks about working and ranking and being ranked and stuff like that. Kung Fu is an Equalizer, brand new interview with actor Melvin Wong. Fighting for Success, a brand new interview with actor Peter Cunningham. The Vigilante, an archival interview with star Yuen Bao. Action Overload, an archival interview with Rothrock. From the Ring to the Silver Screen, archival interview with Peter Cunningham. Video essay with film historian Sam Deacon and Charles Perks. Cantonese and English theatrical trailers for Fighting Wrongs. Then Disc 2 contains the extended and vastly different 100-minute Chinese cut with Mandarin language track, along with newly translated Mandarin to English subtitles and critical commentary track with martial arts historian Mike Leder and Artie Vomona. Also included is Disc English-friendly 92-minute Above the Law cut. And then Disc 3 contains the best of martial arts, a 91-minute documentary from 1990, hosted by John Sachs, including footage and interviews with Rothrock, Bao, Shepard, Jackie Chan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, I can't say his fucking name, Kareem Jabbar, the basketball player, of course, Bruce Lee, and many more. Also included the original theatrical trailer for the best of martial arts. This thing's got a bunch of stuff going on here. Really cool release. Really love watching it. Would recommend Righting Wrongs. I loved it. Good stuff. Yeah. All right, I got a lot to read, a lot of questions, a lot of things like that. Hudson, he did top 10 here. Okay, did I get that? Sorry about that. It says top 10. Okay, so Ken Coakley, I just watched Joysticks a couple times in the past month. I love Greg and Clark's movies, especially Satan's Cheerleaders. He is also a writer and actor. He made his screen debut in the biker film Satan's Sadist. He played the drugged-out biker called Acid. He met his wife Jackie Cole on the set of Satan's Sadist. She would later play the coach in Satan's Cheerleaders. Clark also acted in Dracula vs. Frankenstein. He played a hippie with an unusual wardrobe. He also directed and started A Bad Bunch, which is an indictment on the plague that is racism. Joysticks had a great cast reuniting Joe Don Baker and Logan Ramsey, both from Walking Tall. The roles were reversed. This time Baker was the heavy and Ramsey was the good guy. Jonathan Grise was almost unrecognizable with all that makeup. As you know, his father, director Tom Grise. The first time Jonathan acted was in Will Penny as a little boy. I didn't know that. I covered Will Penny before. Jonathan and his brother also appeared in 1976 two-part TV movie Helter Skelter, also directed by Tom Grise. At this time, Hollywood tried ousting Jonathan as a teen idol. Instead, he has gone out to be a successful character actor. As an aside, I'm glad you had good time at Wasteland. I'm a bit disappointed that you didn't film any footage there, but even you need a rest. I enjoyed the one you did film. It was like an escape from the monotonous nursing home I'm in. And a bit of good news, I'm finally have some movement in my legs, keeping my fingers crossed. Me too. Good luck, buddy. Stephen Plowright, congrats on the anniversary. Thank you. Job Punk, the book Teen Movie Hell is an exhaustive deep dive into 1986 comedies. A good thing to reach out for the counter that internal self-shame one gets when considering works from this genre. Your review of Joysticks mentions the daughter character but doesn't cite her name. Corrine Borner. Kind of a strange word name. Rewatching Zap this past weekend, I was tickled to see that Corrine is in it in a bunch of scenes, mostly just standing there aside the main characters, much like Kelly Maroney does in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Another Greg and Clark film worth seeking out is Skinheads, 89. Technically, maybe it's more of an action drama. I watch it as a horror element, and I suppose if you're a malicious bigot, you watch it as a comedy. The film has a lot of punch for being a low-budget indie film. I think it's as good as Without Warning. Also worth mentioning is 1978 film High Riders, sort of sluggish with a mid-film sappy ballad song that would probably scare away modern-day movie freaks. Keeps my attention when it played the big screen double feature with Over the Edge. Anyways, this film is shot by a young Dean Cundy and has script work by Deborah Hill. Gotta love that. Dean Cundy did a lot of early ones. He did Satan's Cheerleaders for him as well. Caveat, I didn't know now is the time to make this list, so I didn't do my homework. There are plenty of films I haven't seen that I imagine seeing them would affect my list of top 10, but my top 20. The films include Slayer, The Last Horror Film, Madman, Midnight, The Incubus, Parasite, Alone in the Dark, etc. Quite a few others, actually. This week I did ask your top 10 horror films from 1982, so that's what they're talking about, and I'll list them all off. Your previous haul, you got Peter Walken's Privilege, another sluggish film with a kind of off music. Great message inside it that might have got lost in all the yawning. Not the best place to start with one of the sharper filmmakers we had lurking outside the multiplex. I would advise getting to that film from his stronger works. The War Game, La Communion, and Kuldudin are all good. I think Punishment Park is his best film. Congrats on 7 years of making videos. Thank you. Miss Kitty Latterix. I love the films from the 80s. Me too. Nick Moore from Belgium. I've always liked the look of Basket Case. It seems a great mutant creature film. Thanks to your warm recommendations, I'm thinking about picking it up. So remind you, if you just listed your top 10, I didn't read them. I'm going to talk about that later. But if you said something after the movies, I did. So Nick Moore's The Thing, in order 1 to 10. Perfection, I Say No More, Halloween 3, my favorite of the franchise. Yes, I know Michael Myers ain't in it. Creepshow was and always will be my best anthology films ever made. Tenebrae, my Mr. Argento as best. The Appointment, the other classic Edward Woodward starred in. Shame, so few peeps that saw it. Butcher Baker, Nightmare Maker, Susan Tyrrell, Bo Stepson, and Bill Paxton. What more do you want? Poltergeist, They're Here from the Other Side. Pieces, when the U.S. and Spain met, made a rather unique slasher film. If I can get the damn page on stuck. Meow. Cat People, an almost perfect reimagining. Amityville 2, The Possession, equal parts sleazy and scary. It's pretty darn sleazy. Questions. What's your favorite year of the 1980s when it comes to horror? That's really hard. 80s really strong because you get Cannibal Holocaust in there. But I have to pick 85. I don't think it's the best, but it's got my 2 favorite movies in there. Day of the Dead, Return of the Living Dead. Not to mention it's got Demons, Reanimator, Fright Night, and Phenomenon in there as well. So... do you agree that international productions and some spice to the slasher genre do for the strictly U.S. made ones? I think that the 80s ones are better from the U.S., but anything post-80s is going to be better overseas. So the foreign ones get better as time goes on, because they never got that the memo that everything has to be self-aware and self-refer. You know what I mean? That shit gets annoying after a while. See you next week. Sir, I hope you delight us with further tasks, though I draw the line at you doing ironing or washing your car. Adam Watson, a very sexy and buff thumbnail. Thank you. Stoked Scab, Newly Deads is awesome. I need to pick up that Blu-ray, but the Troma release is rough. Dude, I love Basket Case. Belial is awesome. I'm starting an Etsy store, and Belial is one of the things I am making. It's 75% done. I'll send you one when I'm finished if you're interested. Of course I'm interested. I fucking love Belial. Let me know how much you're charging for him. Stephen Hyde, Churro. Brendan Timmons, congrats on 7 years, Dave. I've only been here for 3 of them, but I've learned about hundreds of interesting films through your endeavors, and your contributions to my own knowledge of film is recognized and appreciated. Thank you. Quinn25, thank you for sharing your enthusiasm for cinema's weird and wonderful entertainment. John Oski, in my opinion, that's my 1982 top 10, even if I'm a few years late. Oh, sorry about that. Grog the goalie gets kicked right in the fucking face. Classic. L, still the best weekly video I enjoy watching. Congrats on another anniversary coming soon, buddy. Love seeing you doing what you love. Thank you. I appreciate it. Vlad Dracula, have you been doing anything on 22 Shots recently? No, I'm not doing any other podcast typically. Maybe occasionally I'll do one, but right now I'm focusing on my channel. I've been busy, health stuff. Just don't want any obligations. Just want to focus on my own stuff. Beyond 55, New York City is becoming more like Basket Case movie every day now. Back in 2012 and before that, it was much better. Mustache looking great, by the way. Thank you. Dark Toad the Sticky. Lots of faves from the past and new films for me to check out. Indie Phantom Sofa Cinema. Happy anniversary. I love joysticks and have a poster on my wall. Own the original Scorpion Blu-ray. Love the spoiled daughter who jumps into the pool with her water wings on. Lots of 80s punks in there to make it extra special. A cinema in my hometown actually screened this in March on a double with Electric Dreams as a promotion for the new pinball and video arcade in town. Unfortunately, I was away on work. Tom Brunner. This one might be a little different. He posts his top 10, but he's explaining why it's a little different. Different from others you receive, and then I actually compiled it in January 1983 about the previous year's releases. It doesn't include films I didn't see until later, so it might be the list it might not be the list I make today, but it's what my teenage me thought back then. These were all screenings in the theater, so heavy hitters that I saw on videotape aren't included. I also saw One Dark Night in January 83, but it was on my list, so I left it there. Alright, so basically what I did was I asked people's top 10 of 1982 horror films, and here's what 27 people contributed to the list. So what I did was that your number 1 got 10 points, your number 10 got 1 point. And I basically compiled 2 different lists. I compiled the list of the points in order, which movies scored the highest in points, and which movies scored the highest being on list. So here are the 27 contributors to the list. Stephen Plow Wright, Smudge, Subjective Perspective Collective, Ja Punk, Nick Wua, Quinn, John Noski, Jason Bovey, Ilk Vomit, The Simpsons Guy, Jason Willard, Ben Watson, Daryl Gittins, Tim Walker, Lee Russell, Miles Beno, Zachary Puccinelli, Troy Howarth, Rebecca Reinhardt, David Garrett, John Sulloway, Alan Rowe Kelly, Ian Urza, Tom Brunner, Jason Lindberg, Wayne Hargraves, Glenn Morgan. So let's do, out of all those people, 27, we have 46 movies. Not all of them are from 82 either, okay, guys? I know. So I'll tell you when it doesn't qualify as 82 because we're going off Internet Movie Database. Shit changes all the time. It gets confusing. So, and a landslide win, of course, The Thing. That's no surprise. So it is 217 points. The Thing, number 1. Number 2 is Creepshow, 167 points. Number 3 is Halloween 3 at 125 points. Number 4 is Tenebrae with 109 points. Number 5 is Poltergeist, 104 points. Number 6 is Friday 13th Part 3 at 101 points. Number 7, 84 points, Pieces. Number 8, 82 points, New York Ripper. Number 9, 80 points, Basket Case. Number 10, Slumber Party Massacre, 59 points. And then we have 11, 38 points, Amityville 2, 12, 29 points, Q, 13, 24 points, The Entity, 14, Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker, 21 points, doesn't count, 15, 20 points, House on Sorority Row, 16, that's not right, sorry, that one shouldn't be there, that should be down lower, it just didn't do it right, sorry about that. But that's, so basically 16 is 16 points, Next of Kin, and then 17 is 15 points, The Appointment, and then of course we have 14 points, One Dark Night, 14 points, Beasts Within, 13, Visiting Hours, 13, Madman, shouldn't be there, Cat People, Humongous, Extra, Turkey Shoot, Parasite, Living Dead Girl, Incubus. Now we're like under 10 points here, so I'm not going to go through all that. But she had 46 different movies. So now as far as the movies that appeared on the most multiple list, we'll do that. So, of course, The Thing, 26 list. Creepshow, 22 list. Halloween 3, 19 list. Friday the 13th Part 3, 19 list. It's tied. Poltergeist, 18 list. Pieces, 18 list. Then number 7 is Tenebrae, 15 list. New York Ripper, 15 list. Basket Case, 15 list. 10 list. Slumber Party Massacre at number 10. So 12 lists. So then we have Amityville 2, 8 list, Q 6 list, Humongous 5 list, Cat People 5 list, Butcher Baker, Nightmare Maker, Not 82 5 list, Beast Within 5 list, One Dark Night 4 list, Alone in the Dark 4 list, House and Sorority Row 4 list, Entity 4 list, Visiting Hours 3 list, Next of Kin 3 list, Extra 2 list, Turkey Shoot 2 list, Swamp Thing, Silent Rage, Parasite, Madman, Living Dead Girl, Incubus, Forest, Forbidden World, Appointment, all 2 lists, and then the 1 list, X-Ray, Not 80. That's 81, as well as, Incubuses and Madman. But okay, so we have X-Ray, Superstition, Slayer, Satan's Slaves, technically 80, but I'm counting it for 82 because it changed after the fact for me. And then Mortuary 1 list, Last Horror Movie 1 list, Human Lanterns, Girls Night Out, Evil Speak, technically 81, Dorm the Drip Blood, Death Valley, Death Screams, and Angst, technically 83. So that's what we got there as far as the 1982 top 10 is concerned, or top movies list. We're going to do the Patreon pick. We're picking out 5 movies, and then we're going to hop into the update. We got here 5 coming out. Okay, we got 2 here. Leprechaun movie I haven't covered by Jonathan Wilhelm. There we go. And then we have Derek B. Escape from Planet of the Apes. I think that's the 3rd Planet of the Apes. Whichever Planet of the Apes movie is coming next, we're doing. So if you pick the other one, I think we run that part 4. So, and then we have 2 more. And then we have Brian Nielsen, Shame, with Ingmar Bergman, 1968. Then we have Derek B., The New Daughter. I think that's 4. Yeah, Derek B's getting a lot in there. He got 2. And then the last one, what is this one? Art Figueredo, Cube. I haven't watched Cube in years, so that's a good list. Yeah, we're going to hop into this update. All right, let's get into this update. First up is from Saturn's Core, and this is Mom and Pop, the indie video store boom in the 80s and 90s. And honestly, I love that Ghoulies little thing on there, Ghoulies 2. I don't typically buy a lot of documentaries, newer ones, new documentaries, but I collect the Saturn's Core line, and I love their first documentary, so I picked this one up. But yeah, I'm interested in checking that out. And then next up, we have The Other Dimension and the films of Fabio Salerno. And I think I have a couple of these, honestly. The company, the Italian company, I can't remember what company put these out. I did pick them up, but it's nice to have the Bleeding Skull releases. So this has The Other Dimension, Deep Night, a documentary, and then disc 2 has the shorts, tons of shorts on here. But yeah, these are supposed to be super bizarre Italian films. So definitely going to be interested in those, especially when I'm going through the 80s and 90s. Then we have Touch, Paul Schrader's film. This is one of the new releases from that company. I can never think of what it's actually called, but they've done a couple Paul Schrader movies now. And then we have Kinski, his Paganini, man. Never seen the Paganini movie he did. I have seen Paganini Horror by Luigi Cozzi, though, but that's pretty interesting stuff here. This is the VSL. Then we have The Tunnel, and The Tunnel, The Other Side of Darkness. This is an Umbrella release. And I've heard good things, lots of good things about The Tunnel, to be honest. I think it's found footage, and I've always heard positive things. I never got to see it, so yeah, look forward to that. I think Dave C's a big fan of it. I know the 22 Shots guys are too. This is a replacement disc they sent. And here we have some box sets. We have the Brave Archer collection. This is a Shout Factory exclusive. We have the Brave Archer, the Brave Archer 2, the Brave Archer 3. Really interesting titles for these. The Brave Archer and His Mate, and Little Dragon Maiden. So yeah, very cool. Shaw Brothers, gotta love it. Good price. It was $60, and that's 5 movies. Can't pass that up. Then, of course, we picked up the Shaw Brothers Volume 3. I'm gonna pick up Volume 4 as well, of course. So we have here is the Killer Clans, the Shaolin Avengers, the Web of Death, the Vengeful Beauty, Death Duel, Life Gamble, the Soul of the Sword, the Deadly Breaking Sword, Clan of the White Lotus, Shaolin Abbott, Shaolin Rescuers. Yeah. Love these Shaw Brothers sets. I couldn't pass it up. Had to have it. And last, but certainly not least, we have the Kingdom Trilogy, the complete series by Lars von Trier. I watched the first season, the Kingdom one, and I really liked it. These are really long, though, so it's kind of a chore. Not a chore. I didn't mean that. Like, it's a dedication. You got to dedicate yourself to it. But, yeah, I love the first one, so I'm looking forward to the other ones. Yeah, but we're out of here. Hop back to the video. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching, and as always, have a good one.